I have some right here, Chris. There's some right here.
Thanks. Got a bunch of them in my car.
Oh my God, we do too.
I'm everywhere.
What's up, sister?
Hi. How are you?
All right, yourself?
Good.
You got me, oh, you got me over there.
I know, we got assigned seats tonight.
No, if you wanna switch it, you can switch it.
What are you doing?
We'll be swapping with
You know, he doesn't mind. I'm cool with that. Always on the right side.
You're gonna spice it up a little bit.
What's up, Jeff?
Hi.
What's up? John? What's up, Aaron?
Hello.
What's up?
Well,
We were just waiting for you.
Did you take Martha's seat?
it's just.
Oh, Martha's gonna be on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Double check to see if she's here.
Today, tomorrow?
Where'd she go? Oh, there she is.
I was gonna try to go last week Thursday. Caught digital came in. Time. I got stuck in Harrogate. They fixed it, came back. Need to see it. So don't charge for next week. I can play shit for those cabinets. That's it. Every clear over. Where was it at? At the mansion? Yeah, next Tuesday. Yeah. I don't want to go.
You have to turn them off until you need them.
So you don't bang into it?
I mean, it's like,
You are expecting Jack.
yeah, I talked to yes, Monday?
Looks like we're gonna need them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's fashionable. There he is. Or just. Yeah.
6 o'clock. That was-
I know. Hopefully my husband or kid on me right.
I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Albany Historic Resources Commission. We are meeting in person, and we certainly invite participation on site as well as through the Zoom teleconference. I believe the meeting is also being recorded and will be viewable on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see, we in attendance this evening, myself, John Myers, Chair of the Commission, Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Packer, Commissioner Pinckney, and Commissioner Garrity are in attendance, so I declare we have a quorum. Representing us is Martha Mahoney, who is with the Corporation Counsel's office and connected by Zoom, and Aaron Glennon, Planning Office staff to the HRC. We certainly invite comments at an appropriate time. We just request that the comment be on topic and also be limited in duration to 3 minutes. We have 2 items. This is a public hearing agenda, so we have a quorum and decisions can be rendered at this meeting. And we have 2 items on the agenda. The first one is 152 Western Avenue. This is a certificate of appropriateness retroactive request to approve the painting of hard-faced brick. This was done without a certificate of appropriateness being issued before the work was completed. Is there someone here to represent the applicant? Thank you.
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
Again, I just wanted to say that we really thought we were, complying and we found.
Give your name for the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Hi, this is Kenny Hansen. I'm the contractor that is doing the work at 152 Western. And, again, I don't have a lot of new information I can really add to it aside from the fact that we really thought we were doing the right thing, trying to improve the property, and we were doing it the correct way, the application process, where, again, we did submit the paperwork. Marty did go back down again to get the building permit and to get the lift permit, and was granted everything, so we did think we were in compliance, and obviously we know there was an issue with that stuff.
So,
Go ahead.
I did speak with the building department, and one of the building inspectors about, the process. It does appear that there are a number of times when the building department will administer and issue a sidewalk barricade permit prior to the building permit being issued for the work. Sometimes they do hold off and they issue them at the same time. I guess it's a fluctuating process. It all depends on the application. In this instance, Marty was issued the sidewalk barricade permit outside of the building permit. So even though he had been told that he would not be able to receive the sidewalk barricade permit without the building permit and certificate of appropriateness, they did issue that within 2 days of the application being received, even though we were waiting on the process in order to get you onto the agenda for the certificate of appropriateness. So it does seem like there may have been a conflict in the communication between Marty and the building department and what they had told him, but based on my discussion with the building inspector, they can issue the sidewalk barricade permit without the actual building permit, which happened in this case.
So at this point, what would be the best remedy? Obviously, I mean, the building looks great. It seems, yeah, and again, I understand where you're coming from. It just seems like it would be odd to issue a lift permit when it works, when you're not, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the cart before the horse, but I think we're here, at this point. I don't know what the best, so it does look great. I don't know if there's any way that we could make an exception or if there's something that we could do. It would be obviously laborious, and I don't know that we would gain anything at this point by trying to remove the paint from the building, you know what I mean? But I don't know what your feeling is on that.
So the rehabilitation guidelines of the historic resource overlays, specific for painting of exterior structures, criterion A specifically says removal or covering over, including painting of historic and previously unpainted materials, is to be avoided whenever practicable. Criterion B is historically Albany common brick was painted, therefore it should be painted. Harder pressed or faced brick was not painted, therefore this type of brick should be left unpainted. So those are the two criteria of the historic resource overlay that this permit does not meet. So I don't know if the commission has any discussions or questions for the applicant.
Can you repeat the first one?
The first one, sure. Retention and or restoration of old materials and original colors is encouraged. This is paint and other materials under the rehabilitation guidelines, removal or covering over, including painting of historic and previously unpainted materials, is to be avoided whenever practicable.
The one thing I don't know if you guys remember too, that we kind of pointed out the last time, is the whole left-hand side, just from years of erosion, has, was deteriorated. So I mean, I don't know how practical it would have been to try to replicate that or get new bricks and even have it match in any way, shape, or manner there as well,
It does appear to be somewhat of a mitigating circumstance because of the patching that was done there. Otherwise, to retain the brick unpainted would have required toothing in and rebuilding.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, where that crack is. I mean, it's really unfortunate there is this kind of misunderstanding but the work to start painting it began well before you had the barricade permit or any sort of a building permit. Is that correct?
Well, no, what happened was there was originally just right when COVID was kicking off, they did get a building permit, and this was attached to the building permit. The facade stuff was attached to it. The colors were chosen, all of that was done at the very, very, very beginning. And then COVID hit, and obviously things got shut down and everything like that. And Mike Chapel, who's one of the owners of the building, had spoken to David was here on a couple different occasions. I guess a building permit was issued, but I guess maybe it was more so pertaining, which Mike was not aware of, to the interior work. And then he saw him at a later date and thought in their conversation that he was good to go. So that's when I got involved, and there was an email thread, and I said, Mike, are we all set here? He said, yes, it's my understanding that we're good to go. Then we did start the process, and then that's when Aaron and I had the conversation. So I did stop the work immediately. Marty went ahead and reapplied, and that's when, again, I thought we were good to go, because he reapplied. It was about a 2-week process, and he stopped down and spoke to a couple different people, and they said, no, you're good. That's why, you got the barricade permit and you're all set. And I even triple checked with him, and he thought he was good as well, so.
I listened to this carefully the last time. I don't think anybody here would say it was the correct procedure. It's clearly not what should happen with hard fire trips like that. I agree, it's a mitigation. I can't imagine if you went back to square one and tried to do the repairs on the brick, that it would ever look quite right. And it would be a difficult process. I know at one point somebody mentioned that the doorway, the aluminum doorway, did not contribute to anything in the neighborhood or in the building itself. And I think you showed some possibility of making that more appropriate to it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're open to suggestions on that.
I believe that you and the contractor have, from all accounts, had a good relationship, and particularly even working in sensitive, historically sensitive areas.
Absolutely.
I think maybe the messages that were sent were not clear on either side, and my personal bias is I would not have made it such a stark white in an area like that, so that it stands out, something a little closer to the color of all the other buildings there. But I think my observation is that it was done in good faith, probably by both sides, and there was a misunderstanding. If it's something that I would be willing to put in a vote and allow the hardship to stay right where it is.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I honestly, we really were trying to do it the right way.
Would it make sense to, it's already painted, it's a hardship to remove the paint, you talk about sandblasting, that's out of the question. There are other ways to remove the paint, chemically and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If we do go with this, could we at least think about repainting the wall to match the original surface colors of, the original stone over the sills and lintels, and the gray, is it a gray?
It actually is a light gray. It does appear white. It does appear white there, but it's like a light gray. And when you were just talking about paint now, were you talking about the middle strip? I think somebody had talked about that, and I think that could look good, like that, coming right straight down the middle of the windows, like right there.
I
It's
know.
all blue all the way down. Is that what you're thinking?
I think the last meeting, John, you had brought this up, that there should be blue or maybe some sort of variation in the
I like
color
that.
on the base of the bays.
Yeah, I think the bays need to reflect kind of the original
Okay, yeah.
confirmation of the building, where the bay is defined as this vertical element that comes down the facade.
Original.
This is an opportunity for us to choose paint, make some suggestions to the painting of this building that makes it more compatible with the buildings surrounding it.
But that color is more beige, the brick is dirty.
Yeah.
It's a blonde or a yellow brick.
I suggest retaining that, the brick matching as close as possible the color of the brick and the stone lintels and sills, trying to paint that a color to match that. And then whatever you want to do, you know, in identifying that pop out, the Oriole window. Correct. Glue, whatever, you know, you decide, or whatever you and Erin decide.
You don't object to going back up to handle that, to get some kind of definition in there like the original has on the bay windows.
Yeah,
So you've still gone and hired the same device to get your painter up there
sure.
and getting a color that's more compatible. I don't know what the color is. Is it the brick as it's dirty or the brick once it's clean?
Probably the brick when it's clean.
Do you think we could try maybe the blue strip right down the middle and see if that takes away from some of the light gray or the white, just to, I mean, obviously, you know, try that stuff first and see how we look with the base, sorry about that, the base being all blue and leaving the perimeter alone at first. If it looks good, maybe leave it, but if not, then maybe try, because to go to, I don't know if the beige and the blue would look, how that would look, maybe it look good, I don't know, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the most important thing, you've already, in my opinion, damaged the building.
Okay.
And one mitigating way, in my opinion, is to already painted it, repainted the color that it was before you painted.
You mean like a light beige?
As close as possible.
Okay.
As close to, well, like I said, that brick is dirty,
It is dirty, yeah.
you know. The stone, that's like a brown stone, if you can try to match that color for the lintels and sills for those two windows. And I think we should look at, you know, we should have a say so, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, I'm very open to suggestions, you know,
And maybe you know, your blue, and may, you know, they're very shades of blue.
yeah.
You might want it.
Do you think, because that is dirty, like you said, and I do think it does come out to be almost like a light beige if that was clean. And which I do think would look good with that blue, maybe if we submit some like renderings of like a light beige with that blue, so that way, because they did, and if you look, they did put a little bit of gold, which we got a lot of compliments on that little gold band that was right there, so if that was blue all the way down, and you kept that little bit of the gold accent strip, yeah, right through there. And then maybe you could picture that with like the light beige around it. I think that could look really sharp, and I think that could look good. I mean, I think we could even maybe do that on a computer to kind of give you an idea. You know, try a few things like that, so you know that way we can, before we do it, it'll be well thought out, and we can submit some samples of it.
Yeah, that sounds like.
Does it sound like a game plan?
Well, I think that, I mean, certainly, you've got a great primer there right now.
Yeah,
So,
that's for sure. A good start, a good canvas.
So, what's been done has been done. We certainly don't want to, this is a hardship retroactive adjustment or acceptance of what has happened, but we don't want this to become a precedent for other projects going forward.
Understandable.
Certainly the admonition is that any unpainted material, masonry material, remain unpainted.
Absolutely.
And be repaired in kind. But given the willingness to repaint and look at some alternative color schemes, I think that certainly would go a long way toward mitigating what's been done. I think the white is a little bit bright. Would not have been an appropriate choice to start with. As a wood building, it would be fine.
Gotcha.
As a masonry building, I think it was problematic. So we did that and threw in the storm door mitigation.
Okay.
And I think we can certainly work with you in coming up with and agreeing upon an appropriate repainting of the building. So, I don't know if there are any other comments from.
Does that involve a new painting proposal and application with the building department?
No.
No?
They would have to update the documents, but the current building permit is open
Okay.
because the current exterior painting permit is open, because it is coming before the HRC. So if documents are revised and the HRC finds that they are acceptable, you can submit them
Then they
to.
would submit a new
Then I would
updated
update-
certificate of appropriateness
Yep.
with the paint colors that we've
Right.
discussed at
So-
this meeting.
I could actually go in and submit and upload all of the new documents to the permitting system. So, as long as Ken submitted everything to me, everything was acceptable to the HRC, then we would then move forward with updating all the permitting system.
Okay, is it,
Was there ever a painting permit issued for this building?
There was a gutting permit issued in 2020 for the building.
So there truly was never a painting permit.
And correct. I did find the documents and they were in the packet that were submitted in November of 2020 for the exterior work. And there was a handwritten note. They had elevation drawings and there were architectural notes on the drawings, and then there was a handwritten note that they were going to paint the exterior of the building, but there was never any work. There was never a certificate of appropriateness or a permit issued for that work, which may have been where part of the confusion had come in. They had thought when they had submitted it that they then had approval for that work. But it was just an interior gut permit.
But a proposal was received, just wasn't necessary.
Never acted on,
Yeah.
correct?
The drawing that was in the package did indicate scrape and paint the window sash and the
Cornice,
trim
trim,
and the cornice.
and this hand note is repair, crack, and brick, repoint as necessary, prepare for new paint.
Well, given the discussion, I would entertain a motion on this action.
Move that the second coat of paint be allowed in a more compatible color, showing some of the detailing on the base of the two bay windows as described, and that the inappropriate aluminum door would be taken off and replaced in a way compatible with the color.
Do we have a second?
I'd like to add that we all be involved with approving all of their paint colors.
Yeah.
Second.
Is that a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. We have a motion. Are there any comments from the audience assembled here? Or anyone signed up to make a comment? Zoom?
Let me. Kara, give me 1 second. Okay, Carrie, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify though, this is being considered as a hardship case or just a straight out certificate of appropriateness?
Just a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Historic Albany is a little concerned about the fact that it's not hardship, given that you kind of can't undo it. And I think it does set a pretty poor precedent that you can paint face brick like this. There's a reason why not to. And we do worry a bit about this kind of encouraging more of the, well, what's going to happen if I do it kind of mentality. So while obviously you can't undo it, you certainly, you can't sandblast it. And no amount of stripper is going to get that all off. We do feel that the classification of a hardship makes a little bit more sense in this case, just because it does set a very strong precedent.
I will, this doesn't qualify for a hardship because it is self-created, where
Self-created.
a hardship needs to either be financial or for like a demolition, so.
Right.
Self-created hardship.
Gotcha. Thank you. I don't know how I forgot the self-created bit.
The contractor and myself would refer to this as you killed the cat.
Did I say public comments?
Yes.
From there or here?
Sorry, for this application,
Yeah,
you'll need to, come up and identify yourself.
sure. Kadir Islam, resident of Albany, just to, based on what I've heard.
Would you give your name again, sir?
Kadir Islam, president of Universal Concepts, a tax exempt business here in Albany, state of New York. One, we don't want to set a precedent based on what she said. That it's impossible to redo. In the word possible, impossible is the word possible. We have all kind of technology, do all types of things in construction. Two, as you stated, you want to give a sample to rectify prior to doing anything else, to get it close back to where it should have been. My recommendation is to see that sample before you give the authorization to do something, and then you look at it, and next thing you know, you're gonna get the sample from them, so this way you can have it. But in reference to setting a precedent is more, I would say, important for other contractors to come and say, well, that's what you gotta do, we will not permit, we went on, and as she stated, hardship. Hardship, you know. You all have plenty of money, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I know, I'm only kidding. But if you were to undertake another masonry facade project like this, with any brick that's not painted, don't paint.
Absolutely, you know, I appreciate it, I do. Absolutely understand.
And I think having discussions with the building department on issuing barricade permits without the building permit finalized is a concern. And it led to some understandable confusion because their policy is somewhat variable.
Right, and it's confusing, and the barricade permits are only valid for a very short period of time. I think, this is at 30 days,
Yes, in 30 days.
30 days?
Yeah, but you
So-
can establish when you want to open those.
Yeah, so, you know,
With the
It's also
mention
putting
that they're
pressure to-
repaired to the brick. With the mention that they'll be repaired to the brick prior to painting, it could have simply been a barricade permit for originally a scaffolding. It didn't necessarily, there's no permit for a lift. There's a barricade permit for dumpsters, scaffolding, yes, yes. Anything that's going to impede upon the public road, that's what we're requiring.
I know everybody is concerned about setting a precedent that somebody could look at, come to a conclusion, and do the same thing we will right here again. And I think the very visible changing the entire color of a fresh painted building makes a statement to the public that something was wrong and it cost money to do all of it. So that makes a
Well, I won't do it again.
public statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't worry about Kent doing it again. I worry about somebody else
No, I-
assuming they would get that shot. And when they see a radical change that was not what was originally done, it helps a little bit to have some amelioration to eliminate the feeling that there's a precedent now.
Well, there are consequences for doing something without a permit.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion. It's been made and seconded. Are we prepared to vote on right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried, and we look forward to your submission of
Samples.
an alternative paint scheme for the building to the planning office.
I'll definitely get those drawn up, you know, so they'll be nice and professionally done. And Aaron, I'll get those over to you then, so you guys will have that. And I really appreciate, you guys helping us work through the situation. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Cool. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. See you.
The next item to come before the commission is 25 Delaware Avenue, in the Center Square Historic Hudson Park District. And this is the construction of a 5-story multi-unit residential building and rehabilitation of an existing fire watch station, or former fire watch station.
We have Matt Dugan on Zoom, and then Michael, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Michael Berkby, project director with Conifer Realty, the developer.
Bill Lafricci with Hirschberg and Hirschberg Design Engineering.
And Matt Duggan with TAT, the architect for the project.
And Matt, just let me know when you want me to proceed through the slides.
I was just going to start with a brief recap of the project and the steps we've taken to this point. Conifer Realty became involved with the project a couple years ago. The property is currently owned by the Albany Community Development Agency, and we have under contract for purchase. We have planned, as mentioned, to develop, to rehabilitate the existing building and develop a 4-story multifamily apartment building behind it that is situated on top of a semi-submerged parking garage. Last summer, we came before the HRC a number of times and had a good conversation and a collaborative effort to improve the design of the property, and I thought that was very productive and ultimately resulted in a better design than where we started. Following that work over the summer, we submitted our funding application to New York State Homes and Community Renewal, which is the primary funding agency for affordable housing in New York, and received a funding award in November of 2020. Since that time, we've been working with our design team to advance the design and pursue site plan approval. We were originally scheduled to go before the planning board in June of 2021, but that meeting was ultimately canceled. We were then scheduled to be on the agenda for the July meeting of the planning board, but they removed from the agenda because there were departmental comments that they had not received yet. We were finally able to appear before the planning board and receive final site plan approval with conditions on August 30th. As you know, we had a discussion on September 1st with the HRC, and that brings us to today's meeting. Our original schedule had us starting construction and closing on our construction financing today. So that obviously did not happen. So we are trying to make up the lost time the best we can, and hope we've addressed the HRC's comments, and we'll be able to receive our certificate of appropriateness this evening.
What were the conditions from the
Yeah, we're waiting on final approval of the sewer connection from Albany County Sewer and DEC, and the other condition was final approval of our traffic control plan. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt to go through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. On the first image here, you can see the location of the site. To the south is the Hackett Middle School and Myrtle Avenue, and to the north is the Boys and Girls Club and Morris Street. So this plan is rotated from the typical north-south orientation. Next slide, please. So here is a site plan of the existing conditions on the site. There's two things I want to highlight here. One is the sloping of the site, and that is essentially on Delaware Avenue. You go about 2 feet up to get to the facade, the Delaware Avenue facing facade of the fire signal building, and then the grade drops off significantly. And so the grade behind the fire signal building is a half story below where it is on the front. So it is about 3 to 4 feet lower than Delaware Avenue. And then as you get to the corner of Myrtle and Lark Street, you're down an additional 12 feet from there. So there is a significant slope as you head towards the corner of Myrtle and Lark Street. The other item I want to point out is that the fire signal building was originally built as a standalone building in 1917, and then worked as a fire signal building until the mid-60s. About 10 years later, it became the senior center, and shortly thereafter, to the back, approximately where the new proposed building is going to go, and that has subsequently been demolished within the last 10 years. Next slide, please. So here's our, since we met, some change the grading. One of the strong comments that we had heard from the commission was that a desire to restore the openings at the basement level of the building was strongly desired. So we had stated concern openings and concerns of snowdrifts against those openings. So to address those concerns, what we have, or to mitigate those concerns, what we have done in this proposal is lower the grade on the south side of the building. So that's left facing Myrtle Ave as you're looking at this plan. Essentially, today, those masonry openings are below grade, or at least their sills are below grade. Additionally, to mitigate the concerns, we are proposing to add a crushed stone maintenance strip on the south and east elevations of the building to allow for property management to be able to remove snow drifts from accumulating against these windows and ultimately getting into the building. So this is certainly a concern that our client has and we have as the architects, but we have heard your comments and are prepared to make these changes to include those windows, despite those concerns to the building, maintenance and health. But we believe we do have methods to achieve the building staying in a healthy condition. Next slide, please. So here is an image from the prior design. You can see that the retaining walls were a bit different, but it's also important here to look at the trees that are being retained and also the trees that are being removed. One of the comments from the site visit that was conducted last year by the commission was that there were some trees very close to the building that were causing some potential damage to the building. There are 3 of them. Those 3 trees are proposed to be removed. And when we go to the following slides, you'll see images of them in the photographs. Next slide, please. So speaking of those trees, the 2 trees in front here are 2 of the trees that were noted by the commission to be problematic. Those trees are proposed to be removed. You can also see here that in the photo to the right, that there is a black paint coating on the base of the building. It is proposed to remove that paint coating. Our spec includes 2 different chemical cleaning procedures to remove it. And our spec also requires that all cleaning is done with a series of mock-ups. So the preliminary mock-up cannot exceed 5 square feet. So we will go through starting with a 50 pound per square inch rinse nozzle and only proceeding to a higher pressure as required to be a slow process. And again, the preliminary sample can only be a maximum size of 5 square feet. And we do have 2 different products that we have specified, which are chemical paint removers to remove this paint. On the brick itself, we will also be doing a cleaning procedure. It'll be a very similar procedure. However, it will not be using a chemical remover. So again, we will do a square foot maximum mock-up. If the results are positive, we will then proceed with a 50 square foot maximum size. If that is then acceptable, we will then proceed to clean the rest of the building. And our spec requires that cleaned areas blend in to all adjacent materials so that there isn't a stark contrast from one color to, or from one level of cleanliness to the next. That being said, we are proposing to clean the entirety of the building pending acceptable mock-ups. So that should be less of an issue. So now going on to the masonry repointing scope. So again, our spec does require that repointing is done with a mock-up before release of doing it in the entirety of the building. That sample area shall be approximately 20 square feet, and that will be done for each type of masonry repointing. The majority of our joints are 1/2-inch thin joints, but there are some variety of joints where we're at the precast cast stone elements. And so those areas will also be mocked up. So if there's more than one type of existing joint, each type will be mocked up. So let's start from the roof and work our way down. You can see in the photo, there's an existing standing seam copper roof that, especially when we get to the next slide, you'll see it even more so, but you can see it in between the trees on that gable, that the flashing on the back of that gable parapet is definitely having some water come in. So that the proposal is to replace the existing copper standing seam roof and that parapet flashing with new copper standing seam roofing and parapet flashing to match what's there. Further down the building, we get to the gutters. Our proposal if it's not possible, then we would be replacing with in-kind round copper gutters. You can also see in the left-hand side of the photo that there is one segment of the existing downspout. Our proposal is to create new copper downspouts that match the proposal or match the profile and dimensions of the one existing segment. The existing windows we are confident are not the original sashes. They are steel, and it is our understanding that the original windows were steel. There was an article that we were fortunate enough to find that was published prior to the construction of the building. So I think it was in 1916 or 1915 that described what was going to be proposed here. And in that article, it states that the windows and doors were going to be made out of a metal non-flammable material. So we do believe the original windows were steel and the existing windows are steel. However, the sashes do not appear to be original from looking at them in the field and from the the limited information we do have on the original windows. So the proposal is to replace the existing windows with new metal-clad wood windows. So from the inside, it would be a wood finish. From the exterior, it would continue that metal finish. It would have a factory-applied coating that would be a dark color matching the existing color. And in each one of these masonry openings today, there are two double hung windows that are molded together. The proposal is to go back again with two double hung windows that are molded together. At the base of the building, it is proposed to put in aluminum fixed windows that are molded together. So there'd be two window units molded together, but they'd be fixed. And the reason for that is that, especially with their location just several inches above grade, putting a double hung window there would be impractical. And we do not have any historical evidence to suggest that these windows were double hung either. The doors are proposed to be replaced. Today, there appears to be non-original wood doors that actually do have 4 operable leaves. They're a Dutch door where the top portion swings differently from the bottom. They're proposed to match the existing profile of those doors and to match the material, so go back with a wood door, but to do that as just 2 leaves. So basically, it would be a more of a standard door. The stairs are proposed to be repaired. There at one point was a non-historic center railing installed in the center. So the plan is to patch and repair the concrete stairs where those openings or where that railing used to be. The existing cast iron handrails will remain. They'll be restored, cleaned, and repainted. After the paint's been removed from the base of the building, the existing stucco finish over the concrete base will be restored, and the pattern that represents or is representative of masonry block will be restored. And next slide, please. On the west elevation of the building, this is where the former addition was located. The scope at the roof remains consistent. The scope with the masonry cleaning and restoration largely is consistent. However, there's the large difference that here there are gaping holes. So you can see in the photo on the right that there are plywood pieces on the upper level. On the right and left pieces, that plywood is in front of just an opening. There is no masonry behind that plywood. So the proposal is to remove the steel lintels that you see there and to rebuild the masonry. And within those 2 wings to the right and left of the gable would be going back with 2 windows. That is basically taking its cues from what exists on the east elevation of the building, so the elevation facing Delaware Avenue. In the center, we will also be rebuilding and removing the former flashing that you can kind of see in the center. It's a little white in this photo of where the roof of the prior building was. There's also a concrete roof from the existing building, right in that area, that will also be removed. And that will be restored with new brick to match the existing. Again, we do not unfortunately have photos or drawings of this elevation of the building. So to get our clues for what the center gable used to look like from a fenestration pattern, we're looking to the north and south elevations, which have a wider window on either end and then a narrow window in the center. So you can see that in our elevation drawing to the right, or to the left rather. At the base level, we will be removing, again, the steel lintels and rebuilding this base. It will be a masonry wall backup with, again, a stucco finish, recreating the score pattern representing masonry block. We will have in the center a set of double doors, which will be the primary entrance into the building. This is creating our accessible entrance into the building. We have two secondary entrances in addition to this, to the primary entrance. And we're also proposing another window and a louver on this level as well. And those will all line up with the openings on the upper level. Again, we will be using the downspout surviving segment from the east elevation for our new replicated downspouts on this elevation. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation. This is where I had described where we're going to be doing the regrading. So you can see here that there is currently a bituminous concrete drive up against this building that slopes up as you head towards the west. It ends at a retaining wall and a set of stairs, which are a remnant from the senior center addition that has subsequently been demolished. So on this side of the building, we will be regrading to have this slope down as you head to the west, as opposed to up as it is today. And that will allow us to bring back the 4 masonry openings that previously existed on this facade at the lower level. We will be replacing them with new aluminum windows. They will be 2 fixed windows per masonry opening mold together. On the upper level, we will be doing the same window scope that we described on the east elevation. The masonry scope will remain the same as the east elevation. You can see here some of the damage that has been caused by the roof and the coping at the parapet cap on the gable end. Next slide, please. Here we are now at the north elevation. Here there are 8 original window openings, 7 of which have a window in them. So we will be going back and putting a window in all 8 of these openings. Here, the basement level windows will have double hung windows as the grades are significantly lower here. Again, the scope is quite similar to what we're looking at the other elevations, where we'll be repointing the building, cleaning. Again, with the samples done, you can see there's quite a bit of repointing required up at the gable ends at the stepped parapets. And again, this facade does have that same black paint coating, which will be removed. And then here, this is the 3rd tree that is proposed to be removed. This tree, again, is right at the corner of the building, and that is proposed to be removed. There, in the site plan on the first page, you can see that similar but not identical to what's shown today, there will be a landscape buffer adjacent to the building. So those slopes essentially remain consistent from what you see today, with only minor modifications. Next slide, please. So here's the plan of the building. On the right side is the lower level or the basement level. You can see that facing up on the page, that's the double doors on the west elevation, which is where the main accessible entrance to the building will be located. And to summarize the window scope, it's proposed to essentially have window openings in all 37 of the original window openings. Today, there are 17 windows in those openings. So essentially, we will be restoring 20 openings to have windows that today are filled in with either masonry or plywood. Next slide, please. So here we have noted the comments from last summer's site visit. Most of these items we've already touched on, but the first one was a request that all spalded brick be replaced with new brick to match the physical characteristics, the visual and physical characteristics of the existing. That will happen. Samples will be provided and a mock-up will be done prior to commencement with work on the rest of the building. In terms of the mortar, our spec does require that the mortar match the original mortar's physical and visual characteristics. And as I stated previously, we will be doing a 20 square foot repointing sample prior to proceeding with the repointing throughout the building. In terms of cleaning of the brick, like I stated, we will be doing that. Our plan is to do the 5 square foot cleaning sample, pending approval of the certificate of appropriateness for cleaning the masonry, and then proceeding with a maximum of 50 square foot sample before then proceeding to clean the rest of the building. Next slide, please. There was a comment to ensure that the openings on the rear of the building are made to be clear that they're not original. And so the proposal here you can see on the right is to keep this same material, which is a precast concrete material as was on the rest of the building, but to have it a flat profile to signify that these are recreated openings, not restorations of existing openings that we know at one point existed. Next slide, please.
Are we missing some windows that were in the bottom west side?
Here?
Yeah.
No, as Matt pointed out earlier, all the openings on the back were covered by the previous senior center addition. So for most of the windows that are being installed, they're pulling reference from the other elevations.
But were there windows there when I first saw the drawing? On the left and the right of the
Previously?
entrance, yeah.
Yes.
Were those original windows that were put there in 1917?
Matt, there were no original openings, correct?
We unfortunately do not know what the original openings were on this side. We found some photos from Delaware. We found a photo from Delaware Avenue. We haven't found any photos from the rear. There was an aspirational drawing that was included in the article I was speaking about earlier from a year or two before construction started. And that does show what appears to be doors on the ground level and appears to be windows on the upper level. But it's clearly an aspirational drawing. For example, in that article, it shows that there are dormers on the roof and several other characteristics that clearly not present in the building. So it's hard to say what was original there. And I wouldn't say that the drawing that we do have is an as-built by any means. But what we're fairly confident is that there were openings there. What we just don't know is exactly the number or the location of them. So another comment was to provide a mock-up of the black paint removal. So again, we will be doing several mock-ups. We'll be doing that 5 square foot followed by the 50 square foot to ensure that we are not damaging the building when the paint is removed. In regards to the historic copper roofing and flashing, unfortunately, it's currently in a state where it is causing damage to the building. So our proposal is to remove the copper flashing and roofing. If there are portions of it that can be retained, we certainly will do that. But that would present having patinaed copper in some areas and a non-patinaed copper in others. So our preference would be, and we believe we will need to do the full replacement in kind of the copper roof and flashing. However, the copper downspouts and gutters, where they exist, and if they are in salvageable condition, our proposal is to retain those. If, however, they can't be retained, the proposal is to match them in kind. In the existing windows, the proposal is to replace the existing windows. We do not believe the existing window sashes are original, and they're currently in a state of disrepair where you cannot open them. You cannot open them in a normal manner. And also, there are only 17 surviving what we believe to be non-original windows out of 37. So we do have some concerns that if there are repaired windows and replacement windows, that it may not be the result that we're all hoping for. Next slide. Patch and repair the front steps where there are broken and missing corners and also missing railing. That is included in our scope. In terms of vine and vegetation removal from the south wall, our spec does include the removal of all vegetation from the walls. It also does include removal of the roots of vines that are growing up the facade as well. Item 11, this is the note on the 3 trees. It is proposed to remove those existing 3 trees immediately adjacent to the building. All of the joints between masonry openings and the adjacent material, whether it's a louver, window, or door, will be caulked. And the sill at the lower level windows on Morris Street already exist. On Myrtle Avenue, they do not exist, and we will be recreating those at the basement level windows. Next slide, please. And then the lower level windows, it is our proposal to remove the existing infill and provide new aluminum windows with spandrel glass. As stated previously, we do have concerns, we continue to have concerns about doing this, but it is our understanding that this is something that the commission feels very strong about. So with the spandrel glass, we will be able to then put in a waterproofing behind the window so that if water inevitably does get into the window, it then has another barrier before entering into the building. And again, as noted, we will have a maintenance strip of crushed stone installed along the south and east elevations to allow, to assist with snow removal at these windows. Next slide, please. So now we're looking at the site in its totality, so including the new construction residential building located on Lark and Morris Streets. So the upper image is our new proposal, and the lower image is what we had reviewed on September 1st. There were concerns addressing the amount of materials and some of the color contrast, or in some cases, the color similarities with the existing fire signal building. So you can see here a quick kind of snippet of that. I'll get into more detail as we progress. Another point I do want to make on this slide is that last summer, when we were working with the commission, there were recommendations to create a strong cornice line on the 3rd floor that is further accentuated with the element on the right, which is now the blue element at the entrance. As we go further, you'll see that this element does actually protrude forward from the 4th floor to really reinforce that 3rd floor cornice line and to also mark the entrance to the building. Next slide, please. So this is the proposal from September 1st. You can see here we were proposing to have a stucco finish on the entry element of the building, and to also have wood panels in between some of the storefront at the ground level, which is facing the leasing and management office space for the property. We also had, we're also creating essentially a ribbon window element on the facade as well. All of these elements have changed as we go to the next image here. So next slide, please. So here we heard the concerns about the busyness of the design, the number of materials, and so we went and tried to simplify it and help unify the building through that simplification. So at the entry element, the stucco material has been eliminated. In its place, we're continuing to use the blue clapboard siding, which is used on the Lark, Myrtle, and Morris elevations of the building. We've simplified the window pattern to eliminate the ribbon window look, and we have also simplified the base of the building, which we'll see more in the next slide. So you can see here, this was the prior design. You can see that at the brick base, we did have wood pieces in between the storefront. This was kind of working with that ribbon window that we had at the upper level. So if we go to the second slide, the next slide, please. Along with eliminating those ribbon window elements on the upper floor, we eliminated the infill panels between the masonry here. So here, we have made larger openings at the base. They signify entrance and to reflect the program behind, which is the leasing office, which is different than the residential units above. But we have simplified the materials to be essentially opening and masonry. Next slide, please. So again, this is now viewed from Lark Street, looking towards Morris Street. This was the prior design. The yellow element to the left was that entry element we were just looking at with the stucco. Next slide, please. So here you can see the simplification of the materials and in the fenestration. You can see further at the base, while we do retain some of the larger glass openings fronting the leasing space, the window furthest to the west or furthest towards Lark Street is the same window size as the windows on levels 2 through 4. And that ties in with the treatment of the base as you work your way to the corner at Morris and Lark Street. Next slide, please. So on Lark Street at I think it was the May 2020 meeting, and it was published the comments in June. There was a concern that on Lark Street there was too much exposed concrete. As discussed at the September 1st meeting, our proposal is to strike a datum line which is 5 feet lower than it was previously. And that datum line lines up with the door to the egress stair at the red element that you can see of one bay in from the left. And that line goes across, and as we get to the final elevation on Myrtle Avenue, you can see this line also lines up with the top head of the garage doors. So together with landscaping and with this significantly lower siding line, the visual impact of the concrete is greatly reduced in the new proposal. Next slide, please. So here's now the view from from Myrtle Avenue at Delaware Ave. This is the September 1st submission, so you can see on the right side that stucco element that was the same color as the brick. When we go to the next slide, please. You can see that from this view as well, the simplification of the materials does help distinguish the fire signal building from the rest of the building by not having those similar colors. It does make the new building recede more into the background. And on the left side of the image, you can see that that datum line that we have set for the top of, or the bottom rather, of the siding lines up with the head of the garage doors. Next slide, please. So here is a view from Delaware Avenue. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the fire signal building is about 2 feet above, or the grade of the fire signal building is about 2 feet above the elevation at Delaware Avenue. And you can then see that down the hill. Next slide, please. So here you can see the materials. We have 3 different color siding materials. We are showing a board and batten at the 4th floor in vertical elements as we were before, but we will speak to that more as we get to the next slides. Next slide, please. This is now the elevation on Morris Street. You can see here that level 3 cornice line being further accentuated by the fact that entry element is, or I should say the 4th floor is set back from that entry element. Next slide, please. Here again is the elevation on Lark Street. Next slide, please. And then here is the elevation on Myrtle Avenue. This is the lowest elevation on the site and where the entrance into the garage is located. Next slide, please. So we did hear that there were some concerns about the board and batten. So we have provided some images here that explores eliminating it. So here the red color material is now shown as a horizontal lap siding. This lap siding would have a 6 and 7/8 exposure. Next slide, please.
Matt, we lost you there for a minute. We had, the lap siding was gonna have a 6 and 7/8 exposure.
Yes. So the next slide will have another image of that as well. So here you can see that that siding then is turning in the corner in between the 2 blue elements that are on Morris Street, and also that lap siding, the horizontal lap siding will be continuing down Mark Street. Next slide, please. And then here are the 2-dimensional elevations depicting that lap siding in lieu of the board and batten. So the thought between the board and batten was that we do have this element that is happening above the cornice line on this east elevation. And then as you get to the north elevation, it does become a primarily vertical element. So that was the thought behind the board and batten. But we did want to present the clapboard option, as we do think that it does further simplify the amount of materials on the building, which we know is something that the commission was advocating, and we do know some concerns about board and batten on this building in general from the commission. Next slide, please. So here is the floor plan of the garage level. On the left is the Myrtle Avenue where the garage entrance is. The other three sides are either fully buried or nearly fully buried. Next slide, please. This is the first floor. This is the entrance floor. On the lower right, you can see that entry element. That is, it's important to note that this level is at the same elevation as the basement level of the fire signal building. Next slide, please. The second and third floors are nearly identical. And you can see that it does have a small step in the elevation or in the footprint at the entry element. And then when we go to the next slide. Next slide, please. At the fourth floor, that entry element is not accentuated. It further accentuates that third floor cornice line. Next slide, please. And at the roof plan, we are showing the location of the mechanical units. Those are behind the three-sided mechanical screen you can see here. And on the right is a section through what that screen is. The screen is 4 feet tall, and it consists of painted 2x8 boards, which are then mounted to posts that are behind the screen. And the paint color of these boards is proposed to be the same as the cornice ribbon element that we have throughout the building. So it's that light gray color. So I believe Michael and Bill have the brick and the siding samples with them and can share them with you at this time.
This is the proposed siding. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact color with me, but this definitely is representative of the look. I think this is an older sample board because I don't even have the exact colors on this side, but I think there's more representative of what it looks like. It is slightly textured, but I think it is less deep than some other products, similar products, so it is not super noticeable unless you're really close. I will also say that this is a composite material that includes a polymer as well as stone dust, so that mix of materials means that it is very durable. And then I also have a sample. This isn't exactly the trim we're proposed to use, but it is of a similar product type. And this is the brick that is proposed for the lower level around the management spaces. It's a pretty neutral gray, I think. Doesn't stand out too much, but still provides enough definition so that people will know where the main entrance to the building is.
Well, we certainly appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and appreciate the listening to our comments the last time out. I think the removal of the stucco and the corner of the building, the entry corner, and toning that down really does help, and it allows the building to kind of reside into the background a bit more. And I think everything has been unified pretty nicely around the building. And I don't have a real problem with the board and batten siding because it does differentiate and offer some relief texturally to the building. But I'll let other commissioners address that issue. I did have a few questions about the signal building. On the repointing, I'm assuming that you're going to have a mortar analysis done for the brickwork so that the repointing mortar matches the chemical or the composition of the existing mortar.
Matt,
That is correct. Our spec does require that. There would be an analysis, a sample taken of the existing mortar.
And then obviously you'll do the mock-up and then you can evaluate the work based on the mock-up. On the roofing, there was some discussion about whether it could be retained or if it needed to be replaced in its entirety. And I think that, probably will come about upon further investigation, how that decision plays out. But I noticed that I drove by this afternoon, and the roof it appears to be a batten seam roof. There's a little more texture to the seams that run up the face of or run up the roof. So, the concern is that if it is replaced in its entirety, that it matched the profiles of the existing roof, because the batten seam gives some shadow lines and greater definition that a typical standing seam roof would not. So we want to make sure that that does reflect the character of the existing building. The gutters, I didn't quite understand or quite hear what was being said about the gutters. Are they a molded profile now, and you're proposing to replace them with half round if they can't be retained, or is the intent to match the existing gutter profile?
The intent is to match the existing gutter profile.
Okay. Because it would make sense, since you are going to the trouble of matching the downspouts and the conductor heads to the existing. Last question I have is the stair and elevator. The stair on the Morris Street side of the building, or I guess, is that the Lark Street side?
The ones on the south elevate, the ones from the addition or the existing frontage?
No, on the addition. There's one stair that continues to the roof, and that is
That is
concealed.
Lark Street.
Lark Street, okay, and that is, basically, it's defined by that vertical element on the back of the building. But I was wondering if all the equipment on the roof, the elevator overrun, and anything that's on the roof is fully hidden behind that mechanical screen.
So from a sight line perspective, we believe it will be hidden. However, the height of the mechanical screen is proposed to be 4 feet tall, and there will be, the stair itself will be significantly taller than that. But also there is energy recovery ventilators on the roof, and those are significantly taller than 4 feet. But where they're located, they're right in the center of the plan. So from a sight line perspective, from the sidewalk, you would not be able to see it above the screens, but unless you were, several miles away with binoculars, then you probably could.
Yeah, no, that's understood. You have enough depth of roof area that a lot of that can be, if it's located in the center, as you say, it can be hidden behind the sight lines and the screen. Just particularly sensitive to stuff that seems to appear on rooftops, unsuspected or unknown to us. So we just want to make sure that that is very carefully being considered and all those sight lines are taken into account. Also, I had experience with one project where the large mechanical equipment was to hide behind this screen wall, and then the mechanical equipment arrived on a 4-foot platform, and the screen wall
Yeah.
looked like it shrank, and the equipment loomed up very prominently behind it. So again, things to watch out for as the project is proceeding. That, I think, captures most of my comments, so I'll invite the other commissioners to provide their input.
Just to follow up with the screen wall, I mean, so much attention has been put into stave off maintenance on this project for the long longevity. It seemed like one painted, one by boards as screening up there, the roof would probably be the most susceptible to require maintenance, in my opinion. If there was something other than wood, maybe metal.
I agree. I was kind of surprised to see 2x8s as the defined material for the screen wall, where, you know, that would probably be the most challenging thing to maintain.
Thinking about metal, a metal screen, maybe?
Or you can duplicate that look with a metal screen. Yeah, metal tubes.
Probably use some of the, continue using the material that they propose to use on the elevations.
The composite material probably would function.
Again, I think the point you raised is it potential maintenance issue,
Yeah.
just, consider it. I don't think we have any real serious concerns.
No.
I'm just surprised to see 2x8s bolted to posts on the roof.
In general, I think the project meets Secretary of Interior standards, rehabilitation. And it brings the historic building back to life. I appreciate all of the preservation efforts that we pointed out. And I look forward to, or I would like to be a part of the review and approval of the markups. The commission and myself, whatever, to the commission in general. But I will make sure that I make time to be there. The changes to the new building I find acceptable, and it makes the historic building proud and true pop out. And that's all I have. I approve the project. I think it's a good project. And you've been very diligent and patient with us, coming back and forth, and I appreciate that, and I applaud you for dealing with us. And I think it's a great project. I really do. I thought it was a great project from the very beginning, just little details that we have to work out. Fortunately, it took longer than we all expected. So thank you very much. And the historic building, thank you.
I think you've done a tremendous job, and I think a lot of these improvements, I'm sure they've been annoying, and we had to redo things time and time again, but I think the end product has been very good. I think, like John, I'm not sure whether the board in Batten has to be a vertical thing or whether you want to put just the usual, but I'm indifferent to either one. I like the fact that it's a different color and it breaks things up in a useful way. I'm a little concerned with these bricks. Where are they going to go? They look kind of funereal and industrial looking, and seem to say basement of something, but I just wonder if the color is overly dark. You know, usually you go dark, you do it because you think it's gonna look rich. You don't want it to look industrial. So I'm not sure if that's the right color, or maybe something that could a shade a little bit different, but wouldn't look too, you don't want to make it look like the army put it there.
I think the images that I'm seeing, the rendered images, the color of the brick seems to work in the family of colors of the siding materials.
Where does this go? If you could show me.
This is going at the entry element, so it's on Morris Street and Lark, and that interior walkway between the two buildings.
That's what I call it. It's a lighter color up here that I'm looking at than the bricks that were actually put here on the table. That is a lighter color in that drawing.
Yeah, that's almost the same density as the stucco work on the base of the
Yeah,
second building.
it's a little bit darker, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the one that's here on the table is considerably darker. And I'm not sure if that isn't very funereal and gloomy, and I think I'd reevaluate the same brick, but with a lighter color.
I think the color they have in the rendering looks good.
The rendering is good,
So,
but that's not what's at the table here.
The ironic thing is, in the rendering, we actually used a photograph of the brick to create that. But it may be that the mortar joints being a light color here are really making it look lighter than it does in the sample. And it could be the computer lighting of the rendering as well, could be throwing it off, but we can certainly look at it.
Also, it's somewhat in the shadows when it's created, and that could make it look real gloomy.
Yeah.
But overall, good job, excellent job, and I think it's good for the building itself, and it's just marvelous for the historic building. It'll show it off and bring it around for another generation, or many, hopefully.
well, it also, I mean, from a planning standpoint, it enlivens the site. It gives a use to that building. It's, I think it's an excellent project.
When do y'all expect to have it completed?
We're looking at about a 20-month construction period.
Well, we're on a roll. I'll request a motion be made.
I make a motion to approve the project, given the little differences and things like that with the siding. And I'd like to make a condition that the HRC be involved in the review and approval of the mock-ups regarding the historic building, and mock-ups of, if they want to show us materials on the wall or something like that of the new addition.
Lee, when you say siding, are you approving their proposal to replace the lap siding or the board and batten with lap, or for them to keep the board and batten as proposed?
To me, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
I think it's an architectural decision for the designers.
Yeah.
I think either one work.
Mhm.
I'll second.
I would just like to, add to that the the roofing, match the profile of the
Exactly.
existing roof.
Exactly.
And the board and batten, or the batten seam roof configuration.
I hope the roof can be retained. And to replace flashing that's invisible. I don't understand the concept of replacing the entire roof and replacing flashing. That's not visible.
Are there any comments from, or our Zoom participants or anyone here present this evening?
We have Cartier signed up to speak. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, so just price of one able in Anzaki. And then we have a sober admiration for what's being presented. An excellent layout, and so his recommendation is that we table our comments until further notice.
Tonight is the hearing, so we will be taking a vote.
Sure.
And this will most likely not be coming back before the board.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No Zoom comments?
Kara, did you have any comments? Hold on.
No, I'm good. You guys have hashed everything out enough. Thank you. I really appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
All right, well, with that, I'll ask for, if we're ready for a vote.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, the motion is unanimously carried. And we appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I think the back and forth between the commission and the design team has been very beneficial in developing a project that I think everyone will be happy with. So, we really appreciate it and look forward to reviewing sample panels and seeing this come up out of the ground.
Thank you, and I agree. I think that we are in a better place with what the design is than when we started, and that's definitely part of the result of this conversation. So thank you all for your feedback, and we're looking forward to getting in the ground.
Okay. Do you have any other projects locally?
We're looking. We have a couple of other potential sites, so we're hoping to be active in the city of Albany.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Well, do we have any other items to come before the commission?
I do not have anything for this evening
I
outside
know
of,
Martha had sent something
Oh,
out
yes.
about the change in the
thank you for reminding me.
governor's order.
Martha, yep, go ahead, Martha. Martha, are you there?
Oh, I am. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. So good evening. This is the same announcement I made at the end of the workshop and earlier in September. New York State law is now allowing for fully remote meetings. In other words, for the next 4 months, the public does not have to have an opportunity to attend public board meetings in person. The most significant changes are that boards can now also meet via conference call. And if there is a hybrid meeting or a fully remote meeting, board members do not need to list their addresses on the meeting notice. And we've been sort of getting sort of a temperature check of, not literal temperature check, but just gauging interest in board members, how they want to proceed going forward. And it also, I guess it could change meeting by meeting. The BZA has gone remote, the Common Council has gone remote, and the planning board, it's actually unclear what they want to do. I think their next meeting will be a hybrid, again, with the in-person option, but it's up to commissioners how you would like to proceed. But I just wanted to articulate what's in the memo, and two people have strong opinions on it either way.
I'd like to meet.
Me
in
too.
I
person.
like the in-person.
I'd rather be
meeting.
right here in this
Person.
building.
Yeah, I mean, it does, I think what we have also discussed is that if for whatever reason, because we no longer have to notice where where you all will be attending from, like if necessary, you could let us know pretty much right up to the meeting that you know, where you'll be attending from if you're not going to be in person, so. Because that is correct, Martha, because we do it both, we notice it both as being in person and as being virtual, correct? That if last minute, one of the commissioners decides to not attend in person, they could do it pretty much up to the meeting, correct? And you're muted.
Correct, yes.
So that gives us more flexibility in terms of if someone is traveling, they can attend the meeting.
Right.
And the balance of the participants would be in person.
Mhm.
So, no, I like the interchange that we get, the
Yeah.
dynamics of an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And if anything were to change, you know, we'll let you know on our end, but if you all decide at some point that you would like to go fully remote and be virtual, just, you know, we can be flexible and work with that, so.
We all wear masks.
Yeah.
We're all 10 feet apart.
Good shots.
We're all good, yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
And we enjoy seeing each
I
other.
know.
And that.
You know, somebody's eyes are rolling.
So,
You just can't see those expressions on Zoom. Well, we can't see our expressions anyhow because of the mask.
I know. Sometimes it's helpful.
All right, now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn?
Second, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Very good.
thank you all.
Good, nice.
Thank you. Good night, Martha. Night, Kara.
Thank you.
Thank you.